This is the Owl of Wisdom. Like and subscribe for 10 years of good luck. If you don't, it won't be pretty. You won't pay rent? Good luck finding a new apartment. So this happened to me about 10 years ago in a big city on the west coast. Hopefully this counts as pro-revenge. I had just finished grad school and was looking for a way to cut down on rent in an already expensive rental market. Now, mind you, I was young, desperate, and inexperienced with roommates at the time, and this was a huge life lesson for me and hopefully for my roommate too. I placed an ad for a roommate on a well-known site, a guy's name with a list, which in hindsight wasn't a smart move. Enter bad roommate. Bad roommate was a few years older than me and at first seemed really cool with a stable job as a licensed masseuse. After interviewing her, hitting it off really well and getting to know each other for about a month, we rented a loft in downtown around October with the agreement rent utilities will be split. Around the time our first rent was due November, bad roommate said that her work had been slow and she would pay rent in the next 2 weeks. Luckily I had enough in savings so I covered rent. Well, the 2 weeks came and went and still no rent. When I asked her about the rent, she yelled obscenities and accused me of being abusive and harassing her. No kidding. While claiming she didn't have money for rent, she would be out of the house from around 9 AM until around 2 AM visiting friends. All of this nonsense continued on, as well as other things such as stealing my food and breaking some of my belongings, including a bottle of wine that my recently deceased sister had gifted to me. Bad roommate's excuse was bad energy in the house while giving me a little smirk. Fast forward to the beginning of December and you guessed it, still no rent. This time, in addition to yelling obscenities, accusing me of being abusive, and breaking my stuff, bad roommate called the police on me, accusing me of making threats. The cops did not do anything as there was no evidence I did anything. For the record, I didn't. But they did give me a lecture about making threats and said next time they come out I could be arrested or forced to leave the residence. By this time I was almost out of savings and was fearing eviction. Bad roommate had not paid rent since move-in. The final straw came when I came home from work to find her threatening my 2 cats who were cowering in the corner. I almost lost it. But due to what happened before with the police, I didn't want to poke the fire. This is when I remembered the officer saying I could be forced to leave the residence and a light bulb went off in my head. Now the revenge part. I called my best friend whose father, best friend's dad attorney, was an attorney. After a phone consultation with him, he told me to pay up the rent and utilities through December and then simply surrender my key, garage, remote, etc. with a signed note saying that I surrender possession of the property with a specified date. I snapped a photo of this note and left it with the secretary in the management office. I then proceeded to sign a new lease with the last of my savings. 1 week before Christmas, while bad roommate was out visiting friends, I packed up all of my belongings and left the house pretty much empty except for the little bit of belongings she had, a little bit of food and her bed. After about 2 days of angry voicemails, texts, and missed calls from bad roommate telling me what a horrible and irresponsible person I was to do this, boom, dead silence until April. In April I was served with a summons for breach of contract for abandoning the lease by the landlord. I contacted the attorney, aka best friend's dad, and filed a response to the court with a hearing date set in late May. I showed up to the hearing with my friend's dad, attorney, and his 2, I'm guessing they were assistants. Bad roommate was also there looking smug. Think wine bottle incident smirk. Next thing I know, the other attorney announces they are dismissing me from the lawsuit since I surrendered possession of the property, but they were not dismissing it against bad roommate. Bad roommate's face went gaunt. The smirk disappeared and it was priceless. After some back and forth with her almost getting held in contempt of court for outbursts, the judge ruled against my roommate with full judgment awarded to the landlord. The first cherry on top, best friend's dad represented me pro bono. The final cherry on top, I came to find out a month later via an angry voicemail from bad roommate that after being kicked out of a friend's house while couch surfing, her credit was trashed. She had an eviction on her record, and subsequently could not get another apartment, and that again I was a horrible, irresponsible person. I never heard from her again afterwards, but she was on the news a few months later, mugshot and all, for trashing a convenience store. Last I heard, she moved to Las Vegas. In the end my credit did take a small hit. Even though the suit was dismissed, the debt was put into collections and reported to the credit bureau. For the next 4 years I tried unsuccessfully to have it removed. At the 4-year anniversary of the lawsuit, I petitioned the credit bureau under the advice of my friend's dad attorney to clear my record, as the statute for filing suit had expired at the 4-year mark. Failure to comply with the request would result in a lawsuit against the credit bureau for slander of credit. To be honest, I just followed his instructions, not knowing what I was even talking about. A couple days later I received a call that my record had been cleared. She sounds terrible. I oddly pictured her as an evil Phoebe from Friends. Must be the masseur's job. She really was. The animal abuse was too much to stomach. You got a classic rent scammer. You did what you needed to do, well done. She sounds like she may also have a drug problem as well. Whoa, they just let you out of the lease because you left early. My landlord would laugh and say cool, you can leave if you want, but you still signed a lease to pay rent for a year. I don't know about everywhere, but in the California SF Bay Area, and this person did mention West Coast City, the rule is generally that the landlord can only hold you to a year's lease if they are unable to find anyone willing to rent the apartment at the same rate. Because vacancy rates are so low, as long as you weren't paying more than what the place should go for, landlords generally just shrug and find another tenant. Whoa, this is a combination of entitled people and revenge. Great story. Your friend's dad is a legend. I am also disappointed in the law with the officers. It looks you really dodged a bullet with that woman. Well done. You're so irresponsible that you pay rent and don't break people's stuff. You are also so horrible for protecting your pets. LOL, this person was trash, they deserve to get kicked out. Good on you, op. I almost did this same thing to an equally terrible roommate who fell into a drug problem, refused to own up to it, lost a lot of weight and then lost his mind, yelling at me when I called his mother saying that he may have needed some help, not financially, but with depression, which I tried to talk with him about directly. Always wondered how it could have played out. Bet it was a really cathartic moment for you to finally be rid of her. Props to you for getting out. Great story, man. What a piece of shit. She got what she deserved. It's a shame that she's dealing with whatever she's dealing with, but it's not your problem, and if you promise rent you have to come through. I hope you just ignored all the texts, voicemails when she went off on you like that. The single best response to that kind of behavior is no response at all. Don't give them the attention they're looking for. I also love how your friend's dad just represented you in court for free. That's amazing. Definitely helps to have a good lawyer on your side like that. I'll admit I didn't read the entire OP, just the first few paragraphs. Being 10 years down the road, I'm sure you're familiar with the young renter market by now. My info is just for folks who may still be learning. Never, ever give any leeway for late rent. Learn, read and consult with a local lawyer specializing in landlord-tenant law for your municipality. The law. Do not ever hesitate in utilizing the law to protect yourself. Renting a room is a business itself. There is no gray area. It is a business to bring in X value revenue. Additionally, it is literally impossible to anticipate monetary risk for this tenant. The most put together applicants have just as much statistical probability to become the worst tenants as the worst applicants do to become the best tenant ever. The trick is to treat all equal. That means none are worth the risk unless proven otherwise. The less knowledgeable measure this via virtue signaling, assuming person from ABC situation won't do this thing. This never works. The way to accommodate these situations is adequate deposit and extensive references. Never, ever forego the deposit on a new tenant. Working with a tenant who has deposit coming next paycheck is one thing. Falling for BS from people who have no ties is another. Moved from state 1 to state 2. Paid, contacted all utilities, renew address. No probs right 6 months in. Settled in. Happy life. Here comes collection agency. State 1 electric company says I'm overdue. Bullshit. I say. Pay up. Plus penalties. They say. Cold day in hell. Stay away. Short story. My credit took a minor hit. But as this was the only hit in years, really was minor. Bought cars, got loans, never a problem for years, got it removed from credit report. Thugs gonna say how they're gonna ruin your credit? Tell them to take their best shot. If your credit was okay, no single jackleg is gonna fuck it up. Sounds like she had no intention of ever paying rent and would have eventually tried to fuck you over by just up and leaving herself. And she figured she would get away with all of that. Also probably figured that when you had left, you just up and left without telling anyone, and she was gonna do the same thing to yet again try and fuck you over. I would have loved to have seen the look on her face when they said you were dismissed from the lawsuit, lol. Yet somehow, in all of this, she's the victim and you're the horrible person. Gotta love that logic. Thanks for watching the Chronicles of Reddit. Like and subscribe for a marvelous life of adventure.